My name is Carina Gardner, and I'm what you would call a practical designer. If you're ready to create a life that you love, become an incredible force for good, and generate income while pursuing your dreams, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Make and Design.
There are a few adjectives that I really love, and one of them is strong. I also love successful. I also love kind and good. But when it comes to being a designer, I think that the word I'm always trying to instill on my own designers is strong. And I thought I'd use this episode to talk about a strong designer's journey and what that should look like. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I was always strong, but I sure tried to be. And so I think that what we're looking for here is growth, not perfection. And so I'm just going to share a few things with you that I hope inspires you as you're working to create your strong journey as a designer, as a creative, as a business owner, because it's just not easy. And I find that designers who are strong, or maybe as Angela Duckworth would say, has grit, those are the designers that are able to move forward. The ones who are able to create great businesses and really adapt to the things going on. So this was early in my design business journey. Those of you who have come to Design Bootcamp, you guys know what the first year looked like. So we're going to get past that. We're going to go to, I had a pretty steady online presence with 2 peas in a bucket in digital scrapbooking. I was doing fairly well at that, and it had grown extremely fast. It was trending at the time. It was doing really well. And you guys know, like, my journey for that was difficult. It really was, because at the beginning, when you're getting started, and many of you are there, you just don't know if it's going to work. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome during that time. There's also this feeling of, is this really going to work? Am I going to make it? Am I wasting my time? All of those things are really prominent, even if you had as much education as I did. And I had a doctorate at the time. I was teaching at the University of Minnesota at the time. And it was just a mess. It was really a mess, because you just don't know if it's all going to work out. Okay. Well, for me, it did, okay? And I think for you, it can. And the reason it can is because you're going to have to behave like a strong designer. And one of the first things you're going to want to do is make sure that you are pivoting at the right time. Timing is everything. I just watched an Instagram on this where they were kind of comparing businesses, and timing of market means a lot. And a lot of times people don't realize this because they look back and they can see the timing. They're like, oh, I wish I'd gotten into that at that time. Or I wish I had gotten into the one I hear all the time, YouTube when it first started. I wish I had gotten into Etsy when it first got started. I wish I'd got all these things, okay? It's very hard for people to see timing right now. And it's so crazy because I'm looking at it and going, oh my gosh, like, the market is so ripe right now, especially with the beginnings of AI, and people are deciding not to be designers or deciding not to own creative businesses because they just feel like it's too hard, because they're looking back and going, if I only had gotten in when ... insert, this time here. When I think a lot of them will look back 10 years from now and be like, man, I really wish I'd gotten into that revolution right then. There was something powerful, there was something really good that was going on right then, and I just couldn't see it. Okay, moving forward. Strong designers. So I had a fabric deal. I was working for Northcott as a fabric designer. I did 5 lines in like a year and a half for them. It was really fast. I was doing a lot of lines really quickly. I had a scrapbooking deal. I was doing a scrapbooking paper line once every 3 or 4 months, maybe even more than that. I can't remember, you guys. That was with my mind's eye. It was at the height. It wasn't at the height of scrapbooking. It was actually on the aftermath of scrapbooking. Scrapbooking had reached like a climax, and then it had started going down at that point. But it was still great money. I was still understanding the market, and digital scrapbooking was at an all-time high. So to me, it was like a really good crossover and not that big of a deal. All right. So that's after the first hiccups, the first rough months. That's what happened in my year 2, okay? Which is a lot of stuff in year 2 to have going on. I was also living in a rental house with my husband who was studying for the bar. I had 2 very small children, so 2 daughters that I was watching on the daily. And a little bit after that time, I had also taken a job, like it was full-time, but I was only in the office part of the time working. And it was kind of a busy time is what I'm going to say. It was a really busy time. And there were lots of times where I just felt like I didn't have enough time to do the work that needed to be done. I know some of you feel that way right now. And that is a legitimate feeling, because at the beginning of your design career, in your design business or your art business, the thing that you need is time. It's like the oxygen to your fire. The only way those flames are going to get up and start going is if you can get some oxygen in there. And time is really what it is for a designer or an artist, because you need time to design. You need time to create the art. You need time to do the research. You need time to post your stuff. You need time to reach out to the manufacturers. You need time more than anything. And that was the thing I had the least amount of. I didn't have very much of it. And so I had to prioritize. And this is what I think makes a really good, strong designer. A strong designer doesn't complain about having too little time. They don't. And this is where I know I am at fault, because sometimes I just feel like grumpy that I don't have more hours in my day, grumpy, all the things. But really, a strong designer isn't grumping about their time. A strong designer looks at her to-do list, looks at the things she wants to accomplish, and she is very smart about prioritizing what actually matters. And those of you who are in Design Suite, you know that one of the things that I talk about with you guys is not doing social media the first year, not doing a ton of marketing stuff the first year. And I know we just barely did this. We did a Design Suite Maker Conference where we did have a lot of designers doing stuff in their first year. But that was an opportunity. That's different than just deciding, I'm going to try to do social media every day. At the beginning, it's really hard to do those things, because a strong designer knows that the priority is actually being a good designer and creating great products. And it's really hard when you start a business to prioritize that, because you feel like you should be doing all the things. You feel like you should be building a brand and building a website and making contacts and networking and putting products up and making new products and exploring every medium. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And if you're feeling this way, man, you are not alone. You are not alone. So instead, what you kind of have to do is you have to sit down and prioritize with the time that you have what is truly the most important things. What is going to really make your design business or art business move. And that's a really tough thing, but I think a really good, strong designer does that. And some of you might have been in the space that I was in, where I had small children, another job, and I was running my design business. My husband was, taking the bar, so we didn't see him very often. So it was basically like a single mom with a job and a side hustle. And I didn't ever play. Not ever. Like, rarely ever did I just go play. I just worked. And that was fine for that stage of my business, but it really did mean I had to be strong, and I had to have my mind really single purpose to the vision that I saw that my design business could be. Fast forward, and I think a good, strong designer also knows when it's time to pivot. And I remember when digital scrapbooking was starting to make less money. And I saw it I was in 2 or 3 shops at the time. I think I was in 3 shops at the time. And I just saw that financially those numbers were starting to decline. And this wasn't in month 1, month 2, month 3. This was after watching it for about 2 years. So a long period of time. I think the markets changed faster than they did back then, so you have to watch it even closer now. But as I'm watching those markets decline, I was like, shoot, I need that monthly income. That was part of the income that our family used, especially since I'd gone to so much school. And I was like, what am I going to do? And this is the key thing. A strong designer doesn't complain about it. She just goes and finds a way to adapt to the marketplace. And that's what I did. I adapted. And I think it was during that time that I became the creative director at Cartabella. It was also during that time that I became a silhouette designer. And I didn't know a darn thing about die cut files. Not one thing. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I'm going to have to cut with this machine. And I'm going to have to design with it. This is so much work. Ends up being one of the best pivots I made ever in my career. One of the coolest pivots I've made, and gave me so much more expertise than I ever thought possible. But instead of complaining about the digital scrapbooking market, which by the way, I'm still in those markets, I just decided it was time to pivot and to put my time and energy elsewhere. Sometimes I see people when a certain market doesn't work, and a lot of digital scrapbooking people are gone from that because they just couldn't figure out a way to pivot. They didn't know where to go. And I would say strong designers know when to pivot. It's also part of the reason I teach the way I do. So it would be really easy for me just to teach surface pattern design. It would be really easy for me just to teach scrapbooking design. It'd be very easy for me just to teach sticker design. I don't do that. And it's because if I only taught you one thing, where will that leave you in 2 or 3 years when that market changes? I personally can't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it, which is why in Design Suite, we've taken the hard route. I personally believe that if I give you access to a lot of coursework and understanding how business generally works, and you know how to make products from multiple categories, then you will be a stronger designer for the long run. And that's really what part of the reason I wanted to talk about this, because I think that being a strong designer is being able to pivot and adapt to the marketplace. Not just teaching one thing and hoping it's all going to work out, but because a good designer like myself, and I think I'm a relatively good designer. I went from digital scrapbooking, I had fabric contracts and scrapbooking contracts, to creative director, to having contracts for silhouette, doing contracts. I've done lots of mini contracts for like Michael's Recollection through My Mind's Eye or through Cartabella and Echo Park. I've done, card deals and mini scrapbook line deals for certain groups, like just, behind the scenes, just working my very best to do the best work I can do. Design work for, oh my gosh, one of my favorites was Deseret Book. For those 30 stores, it was so fun to make an entire line of dishware for them, to make, Christmas trays for them, printables for them. We did these big, huge clocks that were really cool. I just really, really enjoyed it. And, I think that strong design is knowing when an opportunity is coming to you and knowing when to take it and when to not take it. And believe me, there have been opportunities come my way where I was like, I don't know that that's the right opportunity for me. And that's a really difficult thing, especially when it seems so cool. And there have been some cool things come my way where I was like, this is not in the time in my life for this particular thing. I don't know that financially it makes the best sense. And I think it's not a great use of time. That's really hard. It's really hard to say no to those things. And as I say no to more things in my life, now that I'm CEO of 3 companies, not just 2, it's been really interesting the things I do have to say no to, things I never thought I would say no to. And I want to tell you that being a strong designer means knowing when to say no as well. I used to say yes to every opportunity. I do like live shows with like Silhouette and with other groups, and I love them because they're great exposure, they're good marketing. And recently I've had to say no to multiple things like that. Why? because we're just so darn busy getting the university ready. And it's just a big undertaking. And so if I don't say no to some of these things, then I am literally taking time away from things that I've told myself I'm committed to doing. And I think it takes a strong woman, strong designer, strong creative, strong artist to know when to say no and also when to say yes. Because at the beginning, there's lots of fantastic yeses, really exciting yeses that you really do have to kind of go after. Okay. Anyway, some of the things that I've kind of dealt with over the years, I think it's also interesting, and this is one of the hardest things, is to also know when it's time to leave. I think this is actually a really big deal for those that are strong designers. I have worked with a lot of organizations, and I think that I remember in specific, I'm thinking about the earliest ones, when it was time to leave, when to make the exit point in that company and move on to something else. That's really hard because you feel like you're hurting people's feelings. I think there's a certain amount of loyalty that you feel to that company and the people you work with. But every time I've made an exit, I've always been very glad of it. It's always been the right choice to exit out. And that takes a little bit of strength because it doesn't always feel good. In fact, it never feels good. Let's just be honest, guys. It never feels good. I've decided that designers who have to go through hard things, especially in their design businesses, end up with really strong businesses. I just don't see them failing because they know when to adapt. They know when to turn when the market turns. And they also know when to say no. And they know when to say yes. And so while they're not making the right decisions every time, and I certainly did not make the right decisions every time, I also did make enough good choices that it propelled me in the right direction to make the kind of money I needed to in my design businesses and to hire the right people to make things go and also build up the confidence in myself that I could make things happen the way they needed to happen. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And so my encouragement to you as you are working on becoming a strong designer, maybe you already are a strong designer and you have some things you would add to this list, is to find that inner strength, that core strength. Don't be afraid to change because I think change is part of the process. Don't be afraid to adapt. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to say yes. And make the best decisions you can in your business because the journey is a long one. If you've only been doing this for a year or a few months, I'm telling you, it is a long one. And man, is it worthwhile. It is such a worthwhile journey because if you can do it over the long haul, there's some really beautiful things that you can create for yourself as you are on this little creative journey that you're making. You're making it for yourself. So powerful. Thanks, you guys, for joining me today. And I'm really excited as we go into September. I think this is the last episode. It is the last episode before we head into, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're heading into September. It's so nuts. And we're heading into the university stage of our business. It's just been exciting. And I think your design career can be more exciting, if I'm being honest, than even the stuff I'm doing right now, because I remember it. And there is nothing quite like it. Getting those first few sales, seeing those first $1,000, like it's phenomenal. It's really, really phenomenal. And you have the ability to do this for yourself, to create that business that you've always wanted. You just have to put in the effort, creativity, go get yourself some education, and be willing to do the work.
Did you know you have access to more free design content, die cut files, and sewing patterns? Join our exclusive VIP group for free by going to designsweetcourses.com/free.